we're going to move on to bring our special guest onto the show from Larry Jacob Internet Marketing. We're going to welcome Jorge Diaz in our studio audience. Woo! Well, we got one audience member that's not clapping. So welcome to the show again, George.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You were the first guest, and you are now the first guest to make a second appearance.
Oh, wow.
So you see, you have two honorary titles now, right? So the reason I have George on the show today is because we want to talk about the power of masterminding. George and I have teamed up to launch the new Next Level Mastermind. This one's going to be a little bit different. I know that if you've been watching the show for the last 45 or so episodes, you hear me talk about masterminds a lot. I run private mastermind groups, but this one's going to be a little bit different in the way we structure it, because this is going to be not just about marketing, but it's going to be about accomplishing those big marketing goals that you've always wanted to do, that you know you need to do, that you know your business wants, needs, and deserves, yet for whatever reason you have not done them. I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, and they're like, oh, I want to write a book, or I want to do a webinar, and I want to have a funnel, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, but they just either don't know how to get there, or they kind of start the process and then it falls apart on them and they have not been able to accomplish those big goals. So George and I are going to help them accomplish those big goals, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
George discovered the power of masterminds just a couple of years ago.
Gosh, going back 6 years ago when I started my business.
6 years ago, right? Yeah. And you have an interesting story, right? Because if I recall, you joined the mastermind group, you were a little hesitant about joining the group, and then you had big hit with it, right? Tell us the story.
A little hesitant. I came up and I just started my business, and I had spent a lot of money to attend this event that was promoting this one mastermind. And I was like stretching just to make sure I could pay for the event. And they had, a hefty price. And I remember thinking about it going, am I going to do this? Am I not? I was in Arizona. I called my wife and I go, honey, it's going to be, it was $800. And I told her, honey, it's $800. And she knows that I'm a very wise thinker and spender. I'm the one that's very astute about that. And she goes, well, if you think that's
a code word for cheap.
Yeah, that's me, right? And so I went ahead and did it. And that was in April. When the bill came in for May, she said, a month?
Oh, she thought it was $800 total.
So total. But I tell you what, it really paid off. Like you said, I was in that program for 3 years. In year 2, my peers voted me the challenge winner, and I got to take home a $30,000 cash check.
That's amazing. That's a cool story, right?
It was a really cool story, and I tell you what, I am 100% behind masterminds, which is why when you started talking about you running them, I go, hey, let's talk some more, because it was just such a transformational tool for me to use. And honestly, I didn't have a clue how to run a business. I was still working at my employer full time. I was running this on the side. I was saying yes to everything because I can build websites, I can do video, I can do just a million things, and I didn't have a business. What I had was a job,
yes,
where I was making money, and it really helped me kind of jump that gap.
Yeah, it's very powerful. I joined my first mastermind group in 2005. I started my business in 2000. 2003 or so, I came across Dan Kennedy and got into the direct response marketing. And then 2005, they started the first local Dan Kennedy chapter, GKIC chapter, and I jumped in and joined that mastermind group, and have been part of mastermind groups on and off since then, which is almost 12 years now. And I swear by the power of it. I've been in some low-end groups where just a couple of $100 a month, and I'm now currently in an $18,000 a year mastermind group.
Yeah.
And people will tell me, man, why do you pay that much money to be in a mastermind group, right? But when I look at what I get in return, when I look at the way that I'm able to advance my business, the way I'm able to kind of, for lack of a better word, I'm almost able to kind of catapult myself across all of the problems and mistakes that I make, because I have this group of people that are holding me accountable, that I'm brainstorming with, that are seeing the flaws in my plan, because the plan a lot of times seems very clear to us.
Yeah. And here's the thing is, a lot of people will tell me, it's like, you mentioned it, that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like, well, first of all, it's not a networking group. And I'm a big believer in networking. I'm very involved in our chamber. I've been president of my BNI chapter. This is not a networking group.
No. I've gotten that a lot from people that don't really understand the structure of it. This is nothing near a networking group.
Right. And it's definitely not a let's get together once a month, lunch with other business owners to see if we can kind of share ideas. I mean, that again,
Yeah,
there's a lot of misconceptions.
That doesn't work. I was in a mastermind group, and that mastermind group, the person who was leading the group shut it down. And some of us decided to continue just meeting on our own once a month and finding a different restaurant, or what we met in my office one month at somebody else's office. But it all falls apart. If there's not one or two people that are facilitating and leading it and putting it all together, it all kind of falls apart. No one's really planning where the meetings are going to be. There's no structure to the meeting. But the biggest reason why it all falls apart, I believe, and I believe that's the reason why mastermind groups are kind of a high ticket item to get into, is if you're not investing in yourself, there's no reason to show up every month. If you don't have, as I like to say, skin in the game, there's no reason to show up every month. Now, when you're paying $500, $800, $1,200 a month, you show up. When you pay that much money, you get the work done. There is no dilly-dallying. There is no bullshitting your way through it and I'll do it next month. No, you're holding yourself to the fire.
No, and when you come up and you go to a mastermind meeting, it's like, by next meeting, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a sales letter. I'm going to bring up my website. And you see it's a week before the meeting. You feel that pressure because you promised yourself, you promised the group, and they're going to ask you, they're going to call you on it. And, there's just a really good dynamic for forcing you, because we're business owners. We can do whatever we want, right?
Right, which is why I joined Mastermind Group. Yeah. I don't know, you've known me a little while now, and you've watched my show, and you've probably figured out that I'm a little on the ADD side, and I'm a little, just a tad, right? And I like to go, and do. But a lot of times, I'm trying to go, and do so many projects that I end up having a bunch of things that I started, and I'm nowhere near finalizing, and then I'm moving on to the next brilliant idea that I get. But that accountability, because as business owners, right, no one's going to call you into their office and say, George, why didn't this get done?
There's no board of director telling you, hey.
There's no HR department writing you up in your file going, this is going to be a written warning. There's none of that. We didn't get it done, right? So we need that peer group to hold us accountable. And it's not just a peer group, because you can have a friend say, hey, buddy, hold me accountable to get this done by next week, right? Doesn't work. What you need is a peer group of other driven entrepreneurs, right? The big thing with the mastermind is you're in a group where you're all driven. You all want to get to that next level in your business, right? There's not a bunch of slackers. Actually, you got one slacker in the room.
And it can really hurt.
And it can really hurt the dynamic of the entire group. That's how powerful it is.
Yeah, and there are different reasons why people don't hit their goals, as a business owner. One is lack of knowledge.
Which is a big one.
Right, so that's one. A lot of them is like what you said, is I'm going to start 10 projects, and then of the 10 projects, none of them gets done. That's one of it. A lot of people, it's almost a deer in the headlights issue, where it's like they're just looking at this ominous goal, and how do you eat an elephant?
Right.
One bite at a time. And so they need help breaking the project down into chewable parts, each of which is not overwhelming, and you can tackle them, put a date on it, hit it, and then go on to the next one. So there's a number of different reasons. And then the other one is just plain accountability. I'm distracted. I'm doing a million things. I'm working in my business and not on my business. And then, you don't make the progress that you need to make.
Yeah. That's the biggest benefit to me being in a mastermind group. I got a lot of knowledge, but a lot of times it helps to bounce that knowledge off of other people especially other people that are not as knowledgeable as you. Because if that's your target market, my target market is small business owners. So if I'm in a room in a mastermind group and I got 8, 9, 10 other small business owners, I want them to be able to give me the feedback and say, hey, I get your message, or hey, this sales letter is very confusing. It's because it's very clear to me.
Well, as we're putting together this mastermind that we're starting, what's the biggest issue we're having is we're describing on our sales letter what it's going to do, and it makes perfect sense to you and me.
Right.
And then I'm bouncing it off of other people that I know, and they're asking questions, and they totally throw you, because it's like, wow.
Yeah, I thought that was clear.
I would have thought that would have been obvious. Like, for example, we have a picture of me winning the $30,000.
Yeah, and a video.
And a video. And you and I look at that, and it's like, oh, that's perfect. And I show it to someone else, and someone says, hey, what's with the check?
Right. Why is there a picture of you with a check?
And it looked perfectly obvious to us, but having other people give you, criticism, constructive criticism.
Right, constructive criticism.
Is super valuable. Super valuable. You can't get by without it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were talking about the accountability and the big goals, right? So typically in mastermind meetings, they have a general format to them where each member is kind of working on different components of their business, and they're bringing it to the table and getting feedback and direction from the group and input and kind of holding them accountable. But what we want to do with this group is a little different.
Yeah.
Because what we want to do with this group is not your everyday marketing, is those big marketing goals, right?
Yeah,
those big ones.
The ones that are going to take you to the next level, right?
Right. For me, for my business, that is creating a funnel. You know, I don't really have an automated funnel. I don't have the multiple steps, right? We do multi-step campaigns, but we don't have anything that's automated in a full funnel from beginning to end. So that's what I'm working on. And I'm working on it kind of sporadically. I'm working on it in kind of bits and pieces, kind of as I go along. But the structure that we want to create for this group is going to help people take their goal and plan it out into 13 weeks.
Yeah.
And in 13 weeks, you'll have the funnel. In 13 weeks, you'll have the book, or you know, some of these might take another quarter to achieve. But using this system that we came across, that I have put a lot of effort into researching this, and I did an episode where I talked about this thing, and this one's George, right?
Yeah.
So George went out and got one, and you walked into my office today with it, and you were all excited. Tell us a little bit about what excited you about this system and the way this journal. Well, first of all, I don't know, is it a journal? Is it a planner? It's hard to describe.
It's a goal-setting tool.
Okay, that's a good way to describe it.
But it also describes how you break that goal down into, like I say, chewable pieces,
right?
So that you can kind of put them down in some sort of order. And then, you know, it does have this. I mean, this is the one you put up on your wall with white, you know, you black marker, white marker it. But it's also got a daily and then a weekly tracker. So that you come up and say, hey, look, by this day, I have to get this much done. And then it even comes up, but if, for example, in my case, I do development work. I'm not supposed to do as much of it because I'm supposed to relegate that to my team. But it's like, here's some sales activities. Here's, you know, work where you're developing relationships. Here's where you're, you know, working on more sales. And again, as a business owner, for me, it's easy to jump back into my technical roots because it's what I do.
Sure.
So this really helps you partition your day and allocate the right amount of time that's going to make it so that you can't miss the goal.
Right. So you and achieve that goal in a quarter.
Yeah, in a quarter.
It's a short amount of time. 13 weeks, one quarter. I mean, if you follow this system, in 1 year's time, you can achieve 4 very big goals. Right. As opposed to trying to do what I do, which is trying to achieve 30 goals in one quarter, and then at the end of it, haven't achieved any of them.
No, right. And the thing is, it could be that you have one big goal that's going to take a year, maybe even longer to build, but then these end up being quarterly micro goals or sub goals that are stepping stones to get you all the way.
Yeah. And I really believe that this is what a lot of business owners out there need. It's not so much input on my headline or input. It's achieving the big goals, right? Because you've gotten to where you've gotten in your business, kind of like most of us have, kind of sporadic, kind of willy-nilly, kind of like, oh, let me try this. We kind of figured it out. Yes. I'm still figuring it out. I'm going on 18 years and I'm still figuring it out. But being able to structure it into weekly goals, into daily action steps, have a group of other driven entrepreneurs that are going to hold you accountable, that are going to be week to week touching base with each other, week to week holding each other accountable for 13 weeks, and then having the expertise of my 18 years as a direct response marketer and your many years as a developer, marketing, automation, Infusionsoft, right? Which is like,
he gets overwhelmed by it.
Oh, no, I got rid of it. This is too much.
Yeah, and here's the thing is, when you start looking at people, and, you know, in the mastermind groups that I've been a part of, you'll see someone that hits up against a deadline that they missed. And then it happens again. And when you start, you know, now you're calling them on it. Well, what is it that's holding you back? And a lot of times it's not even the lack of knowledge. It's the lack of prioritization.
Right.
For example, you know, one of the things that we're going to cover in this mastermind, we're going to talk about what are your strengths. You really want to play to your strengths. Well, you know, I run into customers all the time that, you know, they're running a small business and they're building their own sales funnel, top to bottom.
Yeah.
And it's like, here, the guy's an attorney, he's an accountant, you know, he's someone that's got a specialization outside of that field, and yet he takes it onto themselves versus, hey, that's an opportunity to outsource. You know, in a lot of cases, it could be that you need to have someone on your team to offload your responsibilities, because maybe you should be building your sales funnel, but there's no way you can run your business if you focus, you know, I don't know, 8 hours,
right? If you're doing the $12 an hour work instead of focusing on the big picture, on generating the big revenue.
Exactly. And when you have people from the outside looking at your business, you know, and again, you start building some real connections. I mean, I have people that mean, that was 6 years ago. There are people that I stay in touch with because you've developed this tie. You've started caring for these people. You've been super impressed with the accomplishments they've made, especially when you look at where they started.
Right.
You know, and then you've seen that, and it's kind of like if they call you up and they ask you for some advice on something, you want to help because you kind of have a little bit of personal skin in it. And again, once you can be very honest with people, you know, I've been on hot seats, you know, which is typically part of a mastermind, where, man, they just rip me to shreds. And I felt like I was just been thrown through one of those, you know, cardboard shredders, and you're going, oh my God, how am I going to survive this? But I needed that slapping around.
Yeah, that first hot seat experience can be pretty gruesome, actually.
Yeah.
I remember my first hot seat experience.
With respect and compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. But you go into it, and you know that this is what you need from the group, but you can take it a little personal sometimes, right? You're like, your ego gets hurt a little bit, right? Your ego gets a little crushed, but there's no better way. Like, see,
look, either you learn it from them fast,
or you're gonna learn it the hard way.
It slow and have it tank your business,
right?
You know, so it's up to you how you do it.
Yeah. And I forgot what I was going to tell you a story that happened to me, and I completely forgot. But some of the guys in the mastermind group, the last mastermind group that I was a member of before I started running my own groups, they've done some really cool stuff. You know a couple of them. You know Jamie, right? Yeah. He started his by the way, have you seen he started the 30 leads in 30 days thing, and he started that within the mastermind.
I was one of his prototype clients.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's right. And then, you know, and then he just recently he's doing now this disruptive video stuff.
Yeah.
And he got 1 million views on a video that he did for like a Hachina people.
Wow.
1 million views. And all that is from him being in the mastermind, bouncing all these ideas off of the mastermind members and kind of getting that direction and going for it. Yeah. And that's the power of it.
Yeah.
That's the power of it, because I don't have to fail. I can learn from the mistakes that you all have made. I can learn from the technical skills you have. You can learn from the direct response skills that I have. Yeah. We can learn from the other guy's sales skills. Right? And speaking of sales is probably my big weakness. I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. And for a while I was focusing on making my weaknesses stronger.
Yeah,
and a lot of people do that.
That can sometimes really hurt you really bad.
Yes, it did, until I finally said, you know what? I'm going to face the fact that this is a weakness. I'm no longer going to try to work on turning this weakness into a strength. I'm just not going to deal with this weakness, and I'm going to focus on what I'm really good at. And that's marketing, not sales. And my wife is really good at sales and not so good at marketing. So she works on her strengths. I work on my strengths.
Yeah, you know, years ago, I used to be involved in a group called Back on Track that we would help people that were out of work. And I was giving a presentation about what's your strength. And as a result of giving the presentation, I had to put myself through the test. Well, ends up, I mean, I got a master's in computer science, so I'm like a real techie gearhead. And I always thought of myself as strongest technically. Well, when I looked at all that test, it basically identified that my biggest skills are one-on-one sales and presenting in front of a room.
Really?
Which was something I mean, I'd done a lot of, but I really didn't picture my head as that's who I was.
That's cool.
And it really helped me. I mean, that was before I started this business, and it's really what got me thinking, hey, I've got what it takes to do a business, because, you know, frankly, if you can't market, you can't sell.
Right.
That's just a rugged way to run a business. But those were my strengths, on top of the fact that, you know, I have the technology background. So, you know, it's interesting how you can become very self-aware. And these mastermind groups, you know, you have someone on the outside listening to you. And sometimes you'll have like some negative, you know, head talk that comes out, and people say, well, I would have never thought you were bad at that. You seem to be pretty good at it. And it's just having an objective outsider look at it and see your world from their perspective.
Right.
It really launch you into a direction that you never thought you could go in.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's what happens to me a lot. I'm a very social, I'm very outgoing, I'm an extrovert, and people are like, oh, I figured you'd be great at sales, right?
Yeah.
But I don't do well with the small talk and, you know, the building the rapport. I just want to let's jump straight into it. Let's get busy. But that's cool. That we have to learn what our strengths and weaknesses are. And we don't always know what they are. We think we know what they are.
Yeah.
But from an outside perspective, they may be completely different. And that's why we want to figure out how to incorporate that Strength Finder test, right? That tool, so that we can help the people that are in the group understand based on their personality traits, what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses, and then forget the weaknesses.
Yeah.
You can delegate that. You can find someone on Upwork, on Fiverr. You can find someone in Romania to do this stuff for you very, very cheap.
Yeah, and even like, for example, one of the Strength Finder categories is learners.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are really good learners. And if you're a really good learner, then you're the perfect guy to be doing research, to be coming up with the next cool product, a next best solution, someone that just lives and breathes off of that.
Yeah.
But if that's something that's thrown on you and that's not your strength, that can be such a drain, because you spend all this time just suffering through. You may get there, but it just drains you. And at the end of the day, you're just exhausted, versus when you're doing things that you're really good at, that are your strengths and that you really get jazzed up about, you feel energized. I mean, it comes through in everything you do.
Yeah, that's funny that you say learner, because I was a really bad student in high school. I was a terrible student in high school, terrible student in college, but I would consider myself now a learner. Since I became an entrepreneur and started this business in 2000, I have not stopped learning. And I look at it as, and I think it was Warren Buffett that said, the more you learn, the more you earn, or something like that, right? But that's what I'm all about. I'm just learning and doing the research and just getting in there and figuring it out.
Learning in school doesn't mean you're not a good learner.
Right.
You're just not right in that environment.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think most of my teachers would agree with you. Yeah. That's probably why they would kick me out of the classroom so many times. Get out. All right, so this has been great talk about masterminds. I think a lot of people have heard of mastermind. They don't really know what it is. A lot of people are very curious to understand what masterminds are. So we're going to start putting together a little more content to educate people on what exactly it is and how you can use that resource. And then we're going to launch this new group. What are we aiming for next month? August?
Yeah. August is when we're going to start. And then you'll start seeing some blogs. I know in my Facebook, I'm going to start talking about, the specifics of it. So that, we're looking, we can't have too many people because there's only so many people you can put in a mastermind group. So we need to cap it at 20 is kind of the number we're shooting at. Once you kind of go over that, we probably would have to spawn off a second group or something.
Yeah. Like I've never joined one of those big groups, I don't know, Russell Brunson has a big one that's got like 100 people in it. And I can imagine that you kind of get lost in the crowd there, right? Yeah. That's a big group. The groups that I've run have been smaller, but with this new format that we're creating, I think a group of 20 would probably be the ideal number. I think anything over 20 would be too many, so that they can get the real value out of the experience.
And by pairing people up for accountability, as well as the fact that there's two of us, and some people might gel more with you because they need more direct response help, and they gel more with me because they need more web help or automation help. We're going to be pairing people up, and then we're going to be creating smaller groups or subgroups, so that again nobody feels like they're part of this big massive group that they can't feel connected with.
Yeah, based on kind of like based on the questionnaire. And based on our first meeting, after the first meeting, then we can kind of get a feel for personalities, skill sets, what they're trying to achieve, and then partner them up into smaller groups. Sure. And then within those smaller groups, assign each person an accountability partner. Absolutely. So that they hold each other accountable throughout the week. I have an accountability partner in my in that $18,000 mastermind group that I started in February, and she doesn't mess around, George. This woman doesn't cut me any slack. Oh yeah. By the way, the entire group is women. I'm the only guy. I'm the only guy in the group, and she even the person who runs the group. She told me, she goes, "You do realize that you'll be the only guy in the group, right? My audience or my tribe is mostly female entrepreneurs. Are you comfortable with that?" And I said, "I'm absolutely comfortable with that, because for me, it's about the results." Yeah. And I joined that high-level mastermind group because I saw the results that she is generating for the members of the group. So. Makes no difference to me. I did show up to the first in-person. See, this is one of those not local. See, the one we're doing is going to be local here in Miami. This one is entrepreneurs from all across the country. We meet virtually, and then we meet quarterly. Actually, there's another meeting next week in Portland, Oregon. So we have quarterly meetings. One was in Florida. It goes East Coast, West Coast, East Coast, West Coast, kind of to accommodate everybody. And my first meeting, the first one, was here in St. Petersburg. And it was about 20 of the women in the group and me. And I showed up with a big bottle of Midol. And I put it on the table and I was like, "All right, ladies." I gotta find a way to break the ice with all these women, We had already kind of started to get to know each other through Facebook, but I hadn't met anybody in person. And that structure works well. It's a much bigger group, so they kind of have to meet virtually. I prefer the size of the group that we're doing.
Yeah, and the in-person.
And the in-person makes a big difference. Big difference. And the accountability is what's huge. The accountability. You just got to get them moving forward. The hardest part for people is understanding that if they don't invest in themselves, they're not going to get to the next level in their business.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you what, when I went to that event in Phoenix that got me into the mastermind group, I was having lunch with kind of a coach friend of mine, and I told her, you know what? If I land this deal, I'm going to use the money for that to go on this trip. And she says, huge mistake. If you need to go to that group, you go to that group. Figure out how you're going to pay for it.
Right. Figure it out.
And it was a real mindset change that I needed to get over.
It's like one of those things. It's like having a baby. You're never really ready for it. You just got to kind of make it happen, right? You got to make it happen, right? This is yours. That goes back in there. All right. We're going to wrap up this episode. But before we do have to go through our WTF marketing moments of the week. I got 3 of them for you guys this week. This one just really kind of confused me.